Hi, and welcome to a rather important episode. So here's the question. Are you thinking about heading out onto the road this year in your RV, your camper, maybe your tent for an extended period of time? Whether you're a full-timer or like us, just skipping the US for a while, it is pretty important to know how long you can legally stay in each province and territory in Canada before you're required to register your vehicle, change your insurance, or even update your driver's license. In this video, we're diving into the specific rules for every Canadian province and territory, plus a quick comparison with how things work south of the border. Let's make sure your great Canadian road trip stays legal, stress-free, and full of adventure. Well, I think most people, particularly snowbirds, are already aware of what the U.S. rules are. As a Canadian, you can go down to the U.S. and drive with your out-of-country license, driver's license, for up to 6 months, 182 days. No registration is needed if you are touring for less than 6 months. I would say, however, that it is a good idea to check with your insurance company regarding U.S. travel. When we were getting the insurance for the rig, we had to find an insurance company that would be willing to insure the rig as soon as we crossed the border. And most of the places we checked with were absolutely not interested in insuring our fifth wheel for going down across the border. You will find online experiences that some people have had where they've been hassled in places like California because they have an out-of-state driver's license. But the rules are very clear. You can drive with an out-of-country license in the U.S. for up to 6 months. Now, this is something that I'm not sure that most people in Canada are aware of, that the various provinces and territories each have their own rules regarding how long visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province license. So we're going to go through each one of those. Let's start with British Columbia, and it is 6 months. If you have a valid out-of-province license, you're good for 6 months in the province. This also applies to your registration. No registration is needed, new registration, if you're touring for less than 6 months. They do say, however, that you have to register within 30 days if you start working or if you move to the province. In Alberta, that we call home, a driver's license, visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province license for up to 90 days. And registration and insurance is needed if you are going to be in Alberta with an out-of-province license for more than 90 days. That can be significant because it is almost impossible to see all of Alberta in 90 days. So if you're looking for a long-term stay, it is one of the provinces that have a little bit more strict rules concerning out-of-province licenses, registration, and insurance. Saskatchewan is the same as Alberta. Visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province driver's license for, again, up to 90 days. Same thing with registration and insurance. If you're going to be in the province for more than 90 days, you need to get Saskatchewan registration and insurance. In Manitoba, they don't call it 90 days, they call it 3 months. So it's very similar to Alberta and Saskatchewan. But again, you can drive with a valid out-of-province driver's license for up to 3 months. Same thing with registration and insurance. If you're going to be in the province for more than 3 months, you need to get Manitoba registration and insurance. Probably starting to notice a consistent theme here. Ontario, your driver's license is valid for up to 3 months. And after that, it's a little bit of a change. You need an international driver's permit. You would apply for that in Ontario. Vehicle registration, same thing. If you're going to be in the province for more than 3 months touring, Ontario registration and insurance is needed. Quebec isn't the most lenient in the country, but it is certainly one of the better. Similar to BC, visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province driver's license for up to 6 months. And again, for registration and insurance, Quebec registration insurance is needed if you are touring for more than 6 months in Quebec. We are definitely hoping to get back out to New Brunswick sometime in the next couple of years. We absolutely loved our stay there a few years ago. In New Brunswick, Visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province driver's license for up to 6 months. Registration and insurance is needed if you are touring for more than 6 months in New Brunswick. Nova Scotia, very similar to the Prairie Provinces, driver's license is valid for up to 90 days. And vehicle registration, Nova Scotia, registration and insurance is needed if you're touring for more than 90 days in the province. In Prince Edward Island, visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province driver's license for no limit. However, if you decide to move to the province, you have to update your driver's license within 4 months. Likewise, with vehicle registration, Prince Edward Island registration insurance is not needed unless you move to the province. And then again, like your driver's license, you have to register your vehicle and get insurance within 4 months. But you can stay, if you're just touring and visiting, you can stay in Prince Edward Island for as long as you want. In Newfoundland and Labrador, visitors can drive with a valid out-of-province driver's license for up to 3 months. Registration and insurance is needed if you're going to be touring for more than 3 months. Well, now we get up into the territories, and this is pretty exciting news for people that would maybe like to get up there for a longer time frame. Visitors can drive in the Yukon with a valid driver's license for the duration of their visit. Same thing with your insurance and registration. It is good for the entire time of your visit. However, if your vehicle does not have registration and you need to move it from some place to another place in the Yukon, you can get a 10-day permit. That can be obtained just so that you can move the vehicle. Similar to the Yukon, in the Northwest Territories, visitors can drive with a valid driver's license for the duration of their visit. Same thing with registration and insurance. If it is insured and registered in another province, your vehicle can be operated in the Northwest Territories without having to renew those. You're probably starting to notice a theme here in the northern parts of the country. In Nunavut, visitors can drive with a valid driver's license for the duration of their visit, and you can operate your vehicle without having to re-register or get new insurance for the duration of your visit. So I think it's very important to understand that the information in this video is subject to change. Specific circumstances, such as being a student, a temporary worker, or a member of the military, may have different rules or exemptions. So it is always best to check with the local motor vehicle authority in the province or territory that you plan to visit for the most current and applicable regulations. Well, what did you think of that information?
Wow.
Did you have any idea that was even a thing?
I wasn't even a concept that, uh, being someplace being in another province for more than
Whatever time,
was
like 90 days,
yeah,
3 months, 4 months, 6 months.
I knew, like, when we moved from BC to Alberta, we had 3 months to change our license,
Right.
something like that, because we were moving,
Yeah.
but we're just hanging out, visiting for
A period of time,
yeah,
whatever it happens to be. And I found it very interesting that the more research that I did on this, that, while the US has very explicit policies for Canadian snowbirds, the 182
yeah,
day rule, nothing like that exists in Canada for Canadians that decide to be domestic snowbirds.
yeah,
And that's what we're doing this year. We've decided not to go to the US. We're going to spend at least a full year plus in Canada. And this winter, we have chosen to go and spend the time out on Vancouver Island. But then it just got me thinking about this. Like, well, what does this mean? So I have talked to our insurance company for both the trailer and the truck. And they have both said, yeah, we're fine if you want to be out of province for that period of time. Thank you for letting us know.
yeah,
We'll put it on your file. But then it starts getting into this thing that where you go, well, okay, what happens if you overextend your stay? Now I couldn't find any research that indicates how frequently visitors get ticketed for being in a province beyond the stay. It doesn't seem like it's really a regular occurrence. Apparently,
yeah,
it does happen, but it's not something that is usual. Under normal circumstances, it's things that trigger that you are there as more than a visitor.
Yeah. Employment, um, registering for the provincial health care plan, uh, insurance, buying a vehicle and registering, and
Yeah,
especially in BC, where or in the provinces that have provincial insurance.
right.
So,
Registering a kid in a school.
yeah,
So you might be, snowbirding domestically for a period of time, and it's going to be like full school term. So you put a kid in school. Well, that's going to trigger, even though you're staying in an RV park, it's going to trigger the fact that you're residing there.
yeah,
Taking part-time work, part-time jobs. Will
gotcha.
also, it does not seem to apply if you're volunteering.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to be aware of this. So some of the things that will determine residency, including renting or owning a home, working, having dependents enrolled in schools that we mentioned, and as Libby mentioned, registering for whatever provincial medical plan
Yeah.
is available. Those things will almost definitely trigger that you are now a resident, and you would have to get your license, insurance, registration updated to match the province that you're in.
So basically, anything registering or applying for anything that's on a provincial level will trigger,
Yeah.
will cause people, would cause a chain reaction.
Yeah. So there's really no guarantee. So this is the thing. Even if you have, not done any of those things, okay, you do need to be aware that that if you are still legally residing in another province, you're not going to be guaranteed an exemption from whatever the rule is. So like a 6 month exemption in BC, 90 days in Alberta, 90 days in Saskatchewan, those things, you're not going to be exempt from those things. But some of the suggestions that come up is you should be prepared to show proof of non-residency. So what does that
Yeah.
look like? Uh, if I wrote all of these down so I wouldn't forget. Proof of non-residency, keep documentation that supports your official residency in another province. So
Okay.
that would include things like home ownership, or if you have a rental agreement, utility bills, property taxes or tax statements, utility bills, your provincial health care card,
Yes.
tax filings from your home province, your driver's license, vehicle registration from your home province, and even something as simple as since we just went through a federal election, your election card
And
that shows
I kept mine.
that
I
shows where
didn't
you're from.
I didn't let them shred it. Yeah.
The other thing that comes up on this list is to make sure that your provincial health care stays intact. A lot of the provincial health benefits have kind of a proviso written into them that they expect you to be in your home province for a minimum amount of time, like
Yeah.
153 days or 183 days.
Know what, if you want to be out, like let's say you're doing a round the world trip, contact your provincial healthcare uh,
Provider. Yeah.
office
Yeah.
and ask, because unless you're, doing it in one swell fell swoop, you're going to be out of the country, out of the province for a significant amount of time for this one in a lifetime round the world trip.
Yeah.
So find out what they have to say. We know what Alberta's is.
Yeah. And we were able to talk to them and explain what the situation was. This is our once in a lifetime opportunity to do this. We were going to be out of the province of Alberta for an extended period of time. They knew about it. They signed off on it. We were able to get our meds and things that we needed for the trip and be out of the province for an extended period of time. But they knew about it and sort of gave us the check mark. But it is best, as Libby mentioned, to make sure that you
Your
talk to
provision.
whoever and get the approval to do that.
And we have to be back in Alberta for X number of days, but we have like 4 years to be out,
Right.
to be away. So our around the world trip, which by the way, we are not doing, um, we have 4 years to do that before we will be targeted or tagged.
Yeah. For our trailer insurance, the company that we're dealing with, which very good. I mean, if anybody wants to email us and get the details, I'm not going to be promoting them right now because I'm not sure if this was all company policy. But she was very specific and said, you're going to be traveling from Alberta. You've got an insurance policy. We're going to honor that no matter where you are for the time that you're there. But she said some of the triggers is that if you sort of go ahead and decide, okay, well, I'm going to be longer than 6 months. I'm going to play by, the all of the rules, and you go and apply for registration or insurance or a new driver's license, that will automatically trigger the fact that you are now a resident, and you're going to have to go through that whole policy now when you go back to your home province. So she actually said avoid registering for anything to do with your motor vehicles, um, unless you're going to be moving there permanently. And I think finally, if you are going to be in a province for an extended period of time that goes beyond the chart that we gave you earlier in this video, uh, be prepared to be questioned.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen? Probably not. Might it happen? There's a
Who knows?
possibility. So if you make sure that you can prove residency in your home province, and be able to show that you are visiting temporarily, everything should be okay. But again, as I mentioned earlier in this, rules change. This is a guideline. This is
Yeah.
stuff that we didn't even know about. We wanted to share all of this information because it was
Yeah.
like, did you know that this was the thing? We didn't know this was a thing. So
Yeah.
hard to do the domestic snowbird thing. We are finding that this is trickier than we thought because, trying to find the warm weather, we just really don't have a lot of options. With all of the political turmoil that's going on right now, this idea of Canada really getting a focus on being Canada strong and creating this concept of a strong economy that goes interprovincially, I think this is a place now that you can start to inject this to say, well, what happens if Canadians want to be able to stay in Canada instead of going down to the US? I would like to go to pick a province for longer than whatever that province has as their, maximum stay limit.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have this sort of rewritten in such a way that we can go out for a much longer period of time without having to worry about these kinds of limitations? Anyway, we really hope that you got something out of this. We don't have any solid answers. If you've come across any of this kind of stuff and would like to leave some comments, please feel free to do so. If you like the content, like and subscribe. And I guess on that note, we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah.